Good afternoon, friends of the Museum of South Texas History. My name is Francisco Ajardo. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the museum. And today, for our Museum Plática, we have the great honor of welcoming Mr. and Mrs. Hinojosa, Atanacio Hinojosa, and also Gloria Hinojosa. So Atanacio Hinojosa is a fellow who comes from the Delta area, who grew up with a family that's kind of a storied family in the Edcouch area. He would move to Mercedes as a young man and has a very, very interesting story. It's a very interesting personal story, but also a very interesting professional story. So today's Museum Plática will be with Atanacio Hinojosa, and then after we do one segment with him of his life story, we'll go on break and we will welcome then Gloria Solis Hinojosa, who was a longtime teacher and also quite an innovator as an educator, largely because she wrote her own books, which is really interesting. Now, she didn't write her books when she was, for the long tenure as a teacher, but at one point in her life, she thought, okay, my students need different kinds of instructional material. So she then proceeded to write her own books that she would use for language development. So we will have a plática with her as well. So it'll be two different pláticas, one with Mr. Hinojosa, one with Mrs. Hinojosa. And then in between, we'll also talk about Mr. Hinojosa and the banking industry. So I think it's a set of fascinating stories that I think you will enjoy. I will certainly enjoy them because I've enjoyed my time with the two of them. So if you just stay with us, and when we come back, we will begin con el señor Atanacio Hinojosa. So stay with us. Welcome back to Museum Pláticas, Friends of the Museum. Les presento al señor Atanacio Hinojosa. Mr. Hinojosa, welcome to the Museum of South Texas History.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor.
You got to tell me first about your firm handshake. That was this is something that you probably grew up being taught, that whenever you shake somebody's hand, it's a firm handshake. Is this true?
Well, the thing is that when we were growing up, we had to work hard and I had to milk a lot of cows. And that made my handshake kind of firm. And everywhere I go, that's just the first thing they tell me, you have a firm handshake.
Firm handshake, yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, when you were a young man, Mr. Hinojosa, say when you were maybe 18, 19, 20 years old, what was your size? You were 6 foot.
6 foot, 165. So I had a pretty good body on myself, yeah.
And you were an athlete in school, I'm imagining.
I was a pretty decent football player for the Ed Chelsea Yellow Jackets.
Eso.
I made all district running back.
But at that time, they didn't call you La Máquina Maria at the time.
No, I hate that.
You don't like it? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay.
We are not La Máquina Maria, and I hate that.
You're the Yellow Jackets.
We are Yellow Jackets.
All right, good. So, Mr. Hinojosa, when I saw you today, and I've seen you on previous occasions, that you are a man who likes to wear a white hat.
Yes, sir.
Tell me the story of this. This is, because to me it seems like it's very norteño, very fronterizo, that kind of hat.
Well, when you grow up in the farm, which I did, and we were riding horses and taking care of animals like that, you customarily you wear a hat. And I got used to it, and I was always, after I grew up, we were in trail ride groups, and you had to wear a hat. So me, I love my hats. I have about 6 or 7 of them, not just one. And I buy them often, and I love them. So that's me.
Do they tend to be of that color, your hats?
Yes. I don't like black. I don't like grays. I like
the white hat.
Lighter color.
The
yes.
lighter color hat, yeah. My father was from Nuevo León, and my father was very proud of his white hat.
Yes.
Yeah, and most of the people of his generation, men, also wore a hat. It wasn't necessarily white. It could have been, a little bit beige, that sort of
yeah.
light colored. Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Hinojosa, what year were you born?
I was born March the 4th, 1939.
1939. So you were a Depression baby, Great Depression.
Well, that was, I guess, close to the beginning of the war and stuff. So there was a depression, and there was a rationing of food and items like tires and stuff. I remember my father always telling that. Sometimes they had to go to Mexico to buy piloncillo to sweeten their coffee because there was no sugar.
Because there was a ration on sugar.
Ration of sugar, ration of all kinds of stuff, because it was all being sent for the war effort.
Right. So,
as a matter of fact, my father being a farmer, he tried to join the army, and they asked him, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "I'm a farmer." And they told him, "We need you at the farm, not over here. You need to be providing food for our servicemen." So they wouldn't take him.
And so what you're saying there about your father was really an approach by the United States government to say we all need to be in on it.
That's right, but we want you as a farmer.
As a farmer.
Providing us the food that our soldiers need. So you're better to us as a farmer than at the front line. So
when you were a kid growing up, given that you may have been about 2 years old, almost 3, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and then you would come of age at 4 and 5 and 6 with a certain kind of ethic, a set of behaviors across the country of doing for the public good. Your story of your father being asked to be a farmer, stay a farmer, as to provide for the war effort and for the country. Do you think about how that may have shaped you as a kid growing up, that kind of ethic, that value system?
Yes, back in those days, everything was rationed and limited. So that's how we grew up. My father was a workaholic. He worked 24/7 almost. He never went on vacations. We never knew what it was to go on vacations. To him, it was work, 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 and save, save, save. So that's how I grew up.
What was your mother's name, and also what was your father's name?
My father's name was like mine, Atanacio Hinojosa. My mother, Consuelo Peña, in de Hinojosa.
And where were they from?
Doctor Cos, Nuevo León.
Both of them.
Both of them. They grew up as neighbors. And my father first came to Texas as a young kid. He settled in Mission, Texas for a while. And then he eventually moved to Ed Couch. He didn't have an education. He was a second grade student in Dr. Cos. He was orphaned at the age of 2. So his mother didn't have any means to support him. So that's why he had to leave and find himself a job. So he came to Texas on his own. I don't know how he did it, but he wound up being a real successful businessman, farmer, rancher, and very productive.
He must have had some kind of gift.
He did. If I can tell you a story, people would come to the store. He had a little store in Ed Couch.
What was the name of the store?
Hinojosa General Merchandise. And some kid would come in with a sore or a cut, and he would tell him, "Come here." He said, "What happened?" He said, "I got cut by barbed wire." So he would say, let me take care of you. And he would get the alcohol and the Savon Self and Vicks and Bengay and cotton and everything, and he would sell the person 5-6 items, but he would take care of them. He knew how to do business, yeah.
So you can be both a good businessman and you can take care of your neighbor at the same time.
That's right.
Was that the gift?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think I picked some of his, I don't know what to call them, his gifts, I guess, because I've been the same. I can make deals and make people happy and make me happy también. So.
Your mother, what? I mean, you said that she was from Dr. Cos, right? So they probably knew each other because they were neighbors, probably when they were 5, 6, 7 years old.
They grew up together.
And then they would marry at a young age, maybe?
Well, he went after he was the type of person that he would not marry unless he had a home and a job waiting. You know, he was not going to bring a wife just because. So when he established his home and his store, then he went back to Dr. Cos from Ed Couch all the way to Dr. Cos to go get married and then bring his wife, but he already had his home and his business was already going. My mother also was not educated. She never learned the English language, but she was a wonderful mother and a good cook and whatever. So she took care of the house while he took care of the store and the farm.
What years were they born, respectively?
My father in 1907 and my mother 1910.
Did you know your grandparents from either one?
Oh yes, they came to live with us in Ed Couch. The grandmothers. My grandfather, also named Atanacio, but as a matter of fact, he died in a horse accident. So this is when my father was 2 years old. His father got killed in a horse accident. So he was an orphan. On my mother's side, her father died, at a young age, but I got to know him also.
What are the kind of memories that you have of them? Like, did they seem to you like they were real, say, 19th century people, from the 1800s, or
no?
How were they?
No, I can tell you that my mother insisted that my father take us to Dr. Cos during the summer school. So my brother Joe and I and Richard would go to Dr. Cos, and this is when my grandfather had the ox cart. So we got to experience riding in ox carts and going to the Rio San Juan to get water. They would fill up the barrels of water and bring them home to use in the home cooking and stuff like that. And they also had the horses. They had a little farm. So we would ride the horses to the farm when we were there for 2 weeks. And it was every year, I guess for about 10 years, we went out there. My brother, John, got what they call the evil eye because he was very gordito and white complected, so somebody gave him what they call the evil eye. So some lady there in Dr. Cos came and did something to him and supposedly cured him.
Le hicieron ojo.
Ojo.
Ojo. So, Mr. Hinojosa, you have to tell me what that means because, there could be some people watching us through Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and they might think, I think I've heard of that, el ojo. What does that mean?
Well, I'm not really sure what it means. My wife knows more about it than I do, but supposedly when you attract somebody and you don't touch them, then that gives them like an evil spell. And then the ladies have to come and they use eggs and they use some twigs of some trees or whatever, and they whip them with them, and they supposedly drive that evil spirit away.
And if it does work, that the evil spirit is driven away, what happens to the egg?
It supposedly breaks.
It breaks.
Supposedly, yes.
It cooks from the heat of the body that is coming out of the body.
Something like that, yes.
Algo así.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a real thing, right? That people believe in.
It is. It is. Everybody believes in it. I'm so ugly, it never happened to me.
So nobody ever le hizo ojos?
I mean, no, not me.
Oh my God! Wow.
Not even my wife.
Well, we'll ask her when we get her on camera. But when you grow up along the border, the story of que le hicieron ojo a alguien y luego que lo curaron de ojo con el huevo.
Con el huevo, yeah.
That story is inescapable. You hear it all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, my mother, who was born in 1934, used to cure people with an egg.
No, it was common.
Common.
Very common. They didn't go to the doctor. And that's another story. There were no doctors in that couch.
Who are you going to go with if there's no doctor?
No doctors in that couch.
¿Y en Doctor Cos?
No, menos.
Menos.
So my dad, he never sent us to see a doctor.
Wow.
We always got medicated at home. I didn't get to see a doctor till I was in college, I guess.
Wow.
It was one of those things, yeah.
When you were born in 1939, where were you born?
Right there in that couch, at the home that he built for my mom. That's where we were born.
With a midwife?
No. They used to have a doctor that would come with a little black satchel.
Yeah.
And they called him whenever it was time, so he would show up.
A doctor who came from maybe the big city of Elsa?
No, not even Elsa. I think that they...
Like a traveling doctor?
Yeah, maybe from West Laco, yeah.
Okay. So there was a doctor who was there when you were born?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you know the name of the doctor?
It's in my birth certificate, but I didn't bring it. So
yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Interesting.
But he was an Anglo man, yeah.
Okay. And you were one of how many children that your mother had?
It was 4 brothers, no girls, 4 brothers.
And who were they and when were they born, if you know?
My oldest brother, Jesus Hector, call him Chuy, was born in December the 25th. That's why they call him Jesus. In 1936. My brother Joe Jose Concepcion was December the 8th during the Concepcion saint, whatever. So they called him Concepcion, we called him Chon. And December the 8th, 1936. Then my father wanted a girl. So my mother got pregnant again. and he was hoping for a girl. So again, I show up, and he said, God damn it, I wanted a girl, so I'm going to have to replace this guy with my name, so maybe the next one will be a girl. So he named me Atanacio. He didn't want to do that, but he did. Well, then, Lord and behold, a couple of years later, here comes another boy, Richard. So it was 4 boys, no girls.
Wow. Wow. And Concepción es José Concepción.
José Concepción.
Y él le decían Chon.
John.
Yeah.
A mí, Atanacio, Papa was always called Tacho, and I was called Tachin. So in that couch, if you asked for Atanacio, nobody knew him. But if you asked for Tacho, oh yes, he owns the store. Y Tachin, oh yeah, it's him. But nobody knew us by our first name. Actually, ni Chon, ni Chuy. Everybody just Chon, Chuy, Chon, and Richie. So that's the way it was.
When did your father build or open up his store?
Well, it must have been because my brother Chuy was born there also. So it must have been like in 1933, maybe. And then he went and got married and came to Ed Couch.
Wow.
With his wife.
How long did he have his store?
The store survived after he died. He died young, at 63 years old. So my brother Richard kept running the store for another few years.
Where was the store?
Right there in a block from 107 in Ed Couch. I don't remember the street name anymore.
Industrial, maybe? No? But it was Southern.
Southern Street.
They named it Southern because the Southern Pacific Railroad came through there.
Right.
And that's where Chon lived, no?
Yeah.
Right in the building where the store was.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that. I went to that house several times.
When, I don't know if you want to know that story, but when my parents passed away, they had a simple will, 4 boys, 4 equal parts. So when we got together after they both died, and we decided that my brother Chuy was a professor at A&M. He had a nice home. I worked at the bank in Mercedes. I had a nice home. Richard and Joe did not have a home. So I suggested that one home be given to Richard and one home be given to Chon. So Chon lived in that couch, and Richard got the house at the farm.
And of the 4 boys, you obviously are with us. Who else is with us?
My oldest brother, Chu, is still alive. Unfortunately, he's in an assisted living place. And my brother Richard lives in McAllen.
Okay.
And I live in Mercedes. So
Okay.
only Chon passed away. And I might mention one thing so that the public will know. The reason he's not here is because he had high blood pressure. The doctor gave him pills to combat the high blood pressure. When he saw that there was a bunch of side effects, he decided that was not for him. So he would not take his medication. So I urge everybody that's listening, take your medications. I've been taking my medications. I'm 85 and I feel great.
Amen. Wow. That's
He would not listen.
so you're giving good medical advice.
Yes. I'm not getting paid for it.
So, Mr. Hinojosa, when you were a kid growing up in Ed Couch, you must have started going to school when you were, what, 5 or 6 years old?
6.
6. What was that like? Where did you go to school? And what was that experience like in Ed Couch, Texas in the 1940s?
Ed Couch had an old school that was old army barracks. And they were situated in what they call El Rincón del Diablo.
El Rincón del Diablo.
Yes, sir.
Why would they call it El Rincón del Diablo?
This is where all the laborers would have their own little homes up there. There was actually the poorer section of the community. And I guess the property was cheap at the time there, so that maybe that's why they put the old army barracks. No air conditioning, no heating. They were next to the railroad tracks. And it was all Hispanic Mexican kids. No Anglo kids in the school there. And all the teachers were like in their 60s or 70s or 80s. They were like retired teachers that nobody else wanted. But we got to learn, so that was okay.
What did they call the school?
But no, Ed Couch Elementary.
Ed Couch Elementary. But that would become known as La Escuela Mexicana?
Of course, yeah. Across the highway, there was a beautiful red brick school that only catered to the Anglo kids. And they would bus them from Monte Alto, from Elsa, all the way to Ed Couch. And we lived a block away from that school, my brothers and I, but we could not attend that school. So we had to go like 10 blocks in muddy roads to our little Mexican school here.
En el Rincón del
El
Diablo.
Rincón del Diablo, yes.
It sounds funny.
No,
El Rincón
sí.
del Diablo.
Right.
But in English, it probably sounds a little bit better. The Devil's Corner.
Devil's Corner, yeah.
It sounds a little romantic, no? But El Rincón del Diablo, oh my God, that's a little rough.
But it was all very nice people there in the area. I don't know why they named it that, but we didn't have a problem at all.
Había una maestra muy famosa que le decían Mrs. Blankenship.
She was my favorite teacher.
No way.
Yes, Mrs. Blankenship. I think she had like Indian blood, came from Oklahoma.
Like a Cherokee, maybe.
Something like that. And one thing about Mrs. Blankenship, she loved, ¿cómo se llaman los camaleones? Horned toads.
Okay.
And she would ask us to go find, because the railroad track had the horned toads there. So we would get the horned toads and bring them to her. And then she would say, now go get me some ants and some worms so I can feed my horned toads. So we would go look for them.
Wow.
And so she loved the horned toads.
So that was teaching natural science, teaching biology, teaching those kinds of things with the animals of the place.
It could be, yeah, that's what she was doing, yeah.
There was a lady by the name of, I don't know if I remember the name correctly, but Irma Garza. Was there an Irma Garza, una maestra ahí?
The first Hispanic teacher that I recall is Mrs. Barron.
Delia Barron.
Delia Barron
Oh, my God.
was our, but that was back in high school, not in elementary.
Delia Barron.
In elementary, we had a guy by the name of Calderon.
Carlos.
No, I don't know his first name, no más que Mr. Calderon.
So I'm going to tell you a story about Carlos Calderon.
He came later, I think, to Pan Am, and he was a teacher there.
He was a Spanish professor at Pan Am.
Right.
So one of the things you may not have been privy to at the time was that Carlos Calderon came to Ed Couch Elementary School, the Mexican school.
That was where I met him.
Right. And he came kind of incognito because he was a student at the University of Texas, a student of this very sort of famous professor named George Isidoro Sanchez. And Carlos Calderon was about to write his master's thesis. And he had an idea. He was going to go down to the valley. And he found a job at Ed Couch Elementary where he would be a teacher at the school and then would do a study. He did a 1-year study, a comparative study that would become his master's thesis of the Mexican school compared to the Anglo school in Ed Couch. Do you remember ever seeing Carlos Calderon walk around with a camera?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he walked around with the camera.
Sí.
So he was taking pictures for his master's thesis.
Yeah. I didn't know what he was doing, but he was taking pictures, yeah.
He took pictures of the water fountains, and then he would go to the red brick school for white children, and he took pictures of the water fountains. He would take pictures of the bathrooms where you went, and then he would take pictures of the bathrooms where he didn't, or where you didn't go. And so he wrote a master's thesis that became a very important master's thesis.
Oh, really?
On a comparative study of the Spanish-speaking children in Ed Couch, Texas.
Did I send you a picture of our school when we were in the second grade?
I don't know, Pam. Do you remember getting a picture of that?
I don't recall.
You don't recall? Yeah, probably not. But if you have one, we would love to have a picture of that.
I'd love to bring it to you.
Wow.
It's a nice picture.
Mr.
Mrs.
Hinojosa-
Blankenship is there.
Mrs. Blankenship, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen the school picture. I think you may have shown it to me maybe in your phone.
I
Where
have it in my phone, but
Carlos Calderon is there. Irma, no,
not in my picture.
not in that picture.
No.
See, he would be in later pictures then.
Well, I mean, my only picture is of my class at that time.
I see.
The students and Mrs. Blankenship.
And there's a few kids up there. Like one of them is a congressman.
Ruben Hinojosa.
You went to school with him.
Yes. We were neighbors from just across the alley.
Tell me the story about growing up with the other Hinojosas. Were they parientes, familiares, or any?
My father, I have a picture of them también in my phone. My father and Ruben's father were considered like brothers, and they both had stores in Ed Couch, just catty corner to each other, and they had a house across the alley from our house. So we grew up together since babies. You know. We would go to their house and they would feed us. They would come to my mom's house and she would feed them. So we went to school together. We grew up together. And my dad and Don Salvador, that was the name of Ruben's father, they bought a business in Mercedes, which was a meat processing business. They call it H&H, Hinojosa Meat Market and meat products. So they had to go back and forth from Ed Couch to Mercedes, and it was a little bit of a struggle. My mom, unfortunately, was very sick with asthma, and she would wake up coughing and be coughing all day. And my dad finally told Salvador, "Hermano, compadre, we're gonna have to separate." He said, "I need to stay home and take care of my wife. You need to move to Mercedes with your family." So and he said, "I don't have enough money to pay you for your share." He said, "You don't need this house in that couch or the lot. Give me the house and the lot, and that's payment enough, and you go to Mercedes." So they all went to Mercedes, and that's where Ruben and his brothers graduated later on. And we were, como se llama, not enemies, but we played football against each other, when actually we were like brothers.
Wow. And you're about the same age.
We're all together the same age, yeah.
Yeah.
Ruben is probably a year younger than I am, but that's it.
Do you keep up with Ruben?
As a matter of fact, we're going to go to one of his parties Saturday. Yeah, we've been together through thick and thin. We were on the school board together. He was on the Texas State School Board, and I was on the school board of South Texas ISD. And we started South Texas ISD because of Ruben's idea. And I was the chairman of the board of South Texas. So we worked together. We went to the state legislature and got it approved.
I want to get to that story in a second because I think that the story of Atanacio Hinojosa in his professional life, I think is a really, really important story to tell. The building blocks for that. You would finish the school at Couch Elementary, and then you went to school where? Did you go straight to the central school, or where did you go after that? At the age of 12 or 13?
No, something happened there. My father and Don Salvador, Ruben's father, spoke to the school board members and told them, I said, "Look, our kids we can see the red school brick house from our window, but they cannot go there. We insist that at least Ruben, Oscar, and Tachin go to the school." The other guys had already gone to Central Elementary, Chon and Liborio and the others. So we were admitted to the little red brick schoolhouse. 3 Hispanic kids, the rest everybody was Anglos. So we had to fight our way at the first, but we finally got accepted. And so we went to the little red brick schoolhouse for 1 year, and then from there we went to Central Elementary.
Okay, so the United States Supreme Court ruled that segregation was illegal, racial segregation, in 1954. This is before 1954.
Oh, of course, yes.
This is like 1948, 49, 50, más o menos, no?
Well, let's see, I was born in 39, and I was maybe 9 when we went there, so what's that?
Late 40s, early 50s.
right.
It's a very interesting time in history. So you were like right there in the middle
In
of,
the very middle of it.
wow.
And like I said, we 3 Hispanic kids surrounded by, and there was a big incident, if you want to hear that story. The teacher, I'm trying to think of her name, didn't like us. She fled, didn't like us. So
At the Red Brick
at
School.
the Red Brick Schoolhouse. So she slept with her open hand, and her fingernails got scars in our face. All 3 of us, Ruben, Oscar, and me. At the time, Ruben's older brother, Salvador, Hector, was in the army. He was a paratrooper, and he came home on furlough. So he came down, and we were sitting there, and he said, "Muchachitos, what happened to your face? Were you fighting?" He said, "No, it was the teacher that did that to us." He said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, it's why. For no reason. She just didn't like us, and she slapped us." So he said, "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to go with you guys to school." So he puts on his army uniform, and he goes to school with us. And he talks to the teacher, and he said, "Did you hit my boys?" And he said, "Yes." "Why?" "Well, they misbehaved." He said, "Yeah, but you could have hit them in the buttocks or in the legs, not in their face, because it's very demeaning." Boom, he slaps the teacher. And she goes back and starts crying. He said, "You see what I mean? It's very demeaning." He slapped her again. He said, "I'm going to call the principal." He said, "You call the principal, and I'll slap him too. So you never touch my boys again." From then on, it was no more spankings of any kind. He actually did that. Salvador Hector was his name.
Whoa.
Do you believe that?
Yes, I believe it. But let me tell you the lineage of that I'm seeing. So the person who is the president of Texas A&M University in San Antonio today is Salvador Hector Ochoa.
Yeah. He's related, because that's Gloria's son.
That's Gloria's son.
Yes.
Salvador Hector Ochoa, who's the president of that university, was the dean in the College of Education in UT Pan American. He was my dean when I was a professor there. And he used to tell me stories. Salvador Hector.
That his mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He used to tell me those stories. This is the first time I hear this story.
Yeah.
So, where were you when that story happened? Were you sitting, standing? Like, did you see this?
Of course.
You saw this, and you were like 9 years old, and you're witnessing.
He walked us to school, and all 3 of us.
In his uniform, in his army uniform.
He had his army uniform, and we had our school clothing. But we were holding hands. He said, "Let's go." So he took us by the hand, and we were standing right there when he asked the teacher to come over to talk to him. And he started asking her, "Why did you hit my boys?" And she said, "Well, they misbehaved, but it shouldn't have been that bad. You should have just spanked them in the buttocks or in the legs."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "So because slapping a person is very demeaning, so he slapped her." So
Wow.
she started crying, and then he slapped her again. "I'm going to call the principal. Go ahead, bring him over. I'll take care of him too." And he said, "Don't you ever touch my kids again."
And did she call the principal?
Yes.
And the principal came.
But he didn't say anything. He sort of apologized. He said, "We're sorry it happened. It shouldn't happen again."
Wow.
Period.
Okay, that story has not been written. That story that you just told is wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story. Imagínese cuántas veces hubiera pasado esa clase de historia. Like, it must have happened in other places.
Of course, yeah, no. You hear stories of people not being served at restaurants because you were Hispanic. You hear stories about stuff like that. But it actually happened to us.
What do you think, Mr. Hinojosa, the role of the uniform in this story? Did the uniform play a role in this?
I think so. I think Hector went as a soldier in defense of his kids. He was defending us. So he had to be dressed in the uniform to defend us. I think so. He could have gone dressed anyway, but he decided, no, I'm going to dress up in my army uniform.
There was something about the symbolism of the
Right.
uniform.
I'm defending my kids,
Right.
and he did.
Just as he was also defending the country
También.
as he was, away.
Right.
Wow. That's quite a story. Do you tell that story often?
Well, most people know about it, yeah.
Okay.
I could have, I don't know if I wrote that in one of my stories that I wrote, but if I didn't, I probably should.
Yeah. I think you did. You wrote that story. I remember it, but I wanted to hear it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's such a dramatic story, but it's also a story that when you're a child at the age of 9 or 10 and you see that act, it does something to you in terms of how you will behave later in life when you see, an injustice, perhaps. Am I right with that? You think?
Yes, absolutely right.
All right.
I always try to defend people like that. When I was in school, I was a tough guy. And I was not looking for play to know, but I was tough and I was strong. So when I saw people abusing a smaller child in school, I would go stop it. I said, don't you touch him, just leave him alone, or you deal with me. And they left him alone.
Mm.
It could have been because of something like that, yes.
I mean, it's hard to deny that it would have been because you have that story.
Yes.
You have that story. I mean, probably other things, your father and your mother and how they dealt with situations that.
Yeah, my father always told us, he said, I don't want you to be fighting, but I do want you to defend yourself. So we always did that. So they never bothered with me, nobody.
How was your experience in school, after that at Central, and then from Central you went to the high school?
Yes.
What was that experience like, those maybe 6-7 years after that?
We had a good experience. I was very, very fortunate for whatever reason. The classmates liked me, and I was the class president for three of my 4 years in high school.
Really?
And the year that I didn't want to be president is because I declined. But I was the president my freshman, my sophomore, and my senior year.
What was it about they called you Tachin?
Yes.
What was it about Tachin that would have drawn the attention of the other kids and have them believe that you would have been good for class president?
Well, like I said, I always treated people with respect. The girls and the boys and whatever. And I was one of the tougher guys in the class. So, and I respected everybody. I didn't want anybody to get hurt. And I think that they saw that in me, that I respected them mainly.
As class president, did you find, maybe later in life, that those experiences helped you build leadership?
I can tell you a story, and I don't know if I should or not.
You may as well. It's just you and me here.
The high school coach, I was one of the better players in the team, but he didn't like me because I wouldn't put up with some of his bull, So we graduate, years pass, and we go on and have a class reunion in McAllen. By that time, the coach is gone. He's in mission somewhere. His name is Lum Wright. You might have heard the name. So he was invited to the class reunion. I don't know who invited him, but he was. Mr. Smith was invited, Mrs. Barron, and other teachers. So the coach gets up to talk to the class. We're already grown people. And he started looking at the audience, and Juan Capello, which is Robert Capello's brother, is a physician, a doctor in the Dallas area. and he had maybe gone to a salon and gotten his hair trimmed and his fingernails cut and whatever. And the coach noticed that. So in front of everybody, he's recognizing some of the football players and said, "Oh, so-and-so, I'm not going to mention names, Anglo names, you were great. And so, you were also very great. And you, Juan Capello, I would never play you like that with the way you're dressed and all this." So I said, "What the hell is going on here?" So, and he never mentioned my name at all. I was the star running back at the time, back when he was a coach. So anyway, after his little speech, there was like a break, and I tell him, "I need to talk to you." So we took him outside. I took him outside, and I said, "I don't know who you think you are. He is Dr. Capello, not the snotty kid that you were kicking around with. This is guy Edward Gonzalez. He's a superintendent of schools. I'm a banker. We're not those kids that you were kicking butt around." I said, "So my asking you right now to leave our reunion right now before I kick your butt." So he took off. Some of the Anglo students came and said, "What's going on?" And I said, "He's leaving, or we're going to fight right now." He said, "No, let him go." So.
And you were like a 40-year-old man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but again, there was no need for that. I don't know why he did it, But again, my father always said, "Defend yourself." So I was defending my class, yeah. Nobody else did it, but I did, so.
Wow. And you were talking about orthopedic surgeon Juan Capello. You were talking about Edward Gonzalez, superintendent of La Villa schools, and then something at Region 1. And you were talking about yourself as an important banker.
And Cesar Salinas was there too. Cesar Salinas and Edward Gonzalez were there with me. There were the three of us that confronted the coach, yeah.
Wow.
Cesar, I think, was also working at the bank at the time. I helped Cesar get his job at the bank, but as a matter of fact.
That's quite a story. So you go through high school. You play football in school. You're probably working throughout, no? Were you
yes,
you were
yes.
working where, at the family store or where?
Right. No, but my father had the store, so we had to work the store. He had the farm, we had to work the farm. And there was a story también, but this was even a little bit later when I met this young lady from Mercedes. We were supposed to have a date on a Friday night, but I had to irrigate cotton from 6 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon. So I worked all day in the hot sun. It was July. And I came home and I was tired and I was dirty, and I told my mom, "I'm going to take a shower, and then I want you to wake me up in an hour or so I can go have my date with Gloria." So she said, "Okay." Before I knew it, it was time to get up to go irrigate again. It was the next day morning. And I told my mom,
You missed your date.
I missed the date completely.
Oh my God! But you already knew Gloria well.
Well, yeah, we had been dated already.
Okay. And you were what, 17, 18 years old?
No, maybe 19.
Okay. You were out of high school?
Yes, I was in college by then.
Okay.
So, but I was still working because I was in college and working at the store at the farm. So my mama said, "Tachin," I said, "I'm sorry, but when I went to wake you up, you looked so peaceful and so tired that I decided not to do it. I'm sorry." So I said, "I understand." So and then I called Gloria and she understood. So we went out Saturday. "You better show up Saturday." So I did.
So your mother made an executive decision,
Yes.
a motherly decision.
No, yeah, she had to because I was pooped, yeah.
Yeah, you were exhausted. Wow.
And then I had to go work the next day también, so
When you graduated from Hinojosa High School, what year?
58.
How was graduation night?
It was normal. Again, it was one of those things where I hate to even say it, but my father didn't believe in none of that. So he stayed working at the store, and my mother couldn't drive, so she didn't go. So we did it by ourselves. when I was playing football, my father was too busy working, so when they had parents' night, my brother Chong had to step in and represent the family. So
Right.
that man didn't believe in anything social. He was always just work.
That was his life.
That was
work,
his life.
Work and family.
Right.
Wow. So you graduated high school, Ed Cultural High School in '58, and you had already met Gloria. You were dating Gloria, or did you meet Gloria after high school?
I think it was a little after when I was in college.
Ah, okay. So, how was that transition for you, going from Ed Cultural High School to college? Talk about those days. How it was. Was it an intimidating experience for you, or was it just an extension of high school, or what was that like?
My father always told us, I want you to learn to work in everything that's around the farm, the store, tractors. We drove tractors, we built fences, we loaded hay, we did everything. He said, but I do want you to get a college education so that maybe you can work in an office somewhere and not be out here in this hot sun and cold and whatever. So back in those days, we went to what was then Pan American College in Edinburgh, which is maybe 12, 15 miles away from Ed Couch. My father had one car, and he said, you can have the car one day a week. The rest of the days you walk, or you hitchhike a ride, or you carpool. So we had some friends, and we carpooled our way to Edinburgh every day, back and forth. That's how we came to school. I enjoyed my college days, and I was a pretty decent student, so it was okay. No problems, except we did have to carpool every time we came, or hitch a ride. He was not going to provide a car for every day, no.
Who did you hitchhike with or carpool with?
My friends from Ed Couch, Elsa, and we even met some friends from Mercedes that they would come to Ed Couch and drop their car and then come with me, and then they would pick me up. So we made friends in the college community.
You made it work.
Yes.
Wow. So you would have been going to Pan Am when Pan Am hired, what was his name? Sam Williams, the basketball coach?
Yes.
Who then elevated that program to national prominence.
Well, they brought some humongous black players. We had never associated with blacks before. So that was an experience. Lucius Jackson, I think, was the guy's name that was the star basketball player.
You saw him play?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
And so we got to, we didn't go to class with those guys that I can recall, but they were there, yeah.
Yeah. Where did they play?
No, but they had a little, I didn't follow the basketball, no. I don't think I ever saw them play, but I knew who they were.
Yeah, you knew who they were. They were famous guys, no?
Right,
Especially
right.
by 62, 63.
Oh, no, yeah. They, I don't know if they won some national championship or something, but we had some good days at Pan Am.
Yeah. What did you study?
Business administration, and I don't know how, but somebody told me take some education courses, which helped me later when I needed to go get a job.
Do you remember any professors?
Talent, but it's, one of them was Dr. Talent. And
Kim? Judge Talent.
yeah, that was his name.
Okay.
That's about, I don't know who else I can recall, no.
And so when did you finish Pan Am? Did you finish 4 years after, 5 years after?
No, there was a situation that happened también. I had just started, I was going back and forth, of course, from Ed Couch and back and forth. And in 1961, I had been with the National Guard, and the National Guard got activated to go what they call the Berlin crisis. So I had just signed up for my senior year, and I had to leave and not go to my senior year. I had to go serve my country. And I don't know if it was a good decision or not, but we were Gloria and I were pretty serious. So I said, I'm being called to go serve my country. I don't know if I'm going to come back or not, but I would like to experience being married. And she said, you know what? I agree with you. Let's get married. We didn't have time to do much planning. We had to get married within like 2 weeks. And my father said, you're crazy. He said, but I'll help you. So he cleared the barn and the farm. And that's where he killed some hogs and some calves and had a guy from Edcouch that ran a restaurant, Mike Champion. He said, I want you to prepare a nice meal. So we had our wedding at the church, of course, but then the reception was at the farm, the shed, And we had a little musician there, Mr. Gutierrez, that back in those days was famous. So he came and played some music, and we had a little dance, and we had some food, and that was our wedding. And then I went on to serve my country, and then came back to finish college.
So the church where you got married was
in Mercedes.
St. Teresa in Mercedes.
Our Lady of Mercy in Mercedes.
I see.
That's where she's from.
Mm-hmm. And so after you came back, or where were you deployed to?
To Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay.
And we trained there for a full year, and then they settled the conflict, so we were sent back home.
Probably the Cuban Missile Crisis that was settled?
No, the Berlin crisis.
The Berlin crisis that was settled. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And so then you came back, and then you finished college, and so what was your first job out of college?
Well, I'll tell you another story before I go there. When we decided to get married, my father, being the tough guy that he was, he said, you know what? He said, no, sir. He said, if you're going to get married, you get your harina from your costal. So, which means, you get your flour from a separate sack, not from me anymore. And I said, you taught me how to work, and I'm not afraid of that, so don't worry, I won't bother you with groceries, whatever. So we came to Edinburgh when I came home, and we rented a little apartment that was about a block and a half away from college. And I had to go find me a job at a little grocery store called Bonham Supermarket here in Edinburgh. So I would go to college from 8 to 12, and then I'd go home. Gloria would feed me, and at 1 o'clock I'd be working at the store, and I would work till about 9, 10 o'clock at night. Come back home, study a little bit, go to bed. The next day, the same routine. Worked all day Saturday at the store. So we had it a little rough. No air condition, no radio, no TV. We were poor boying it, but we made it. My father would come home and to visit us, and I wasn't there. I was working, and he and Mom would look around, and they say, "You don't have a TV, Gloria?" I said, "No, sir." "You don't have this?" "No, sir." He said, "But you're not supposed to, because I'm not accepting anything." And then the rest of the story goes that after many years, we have our children, 3 girls. And my father goes to Sears in Harlingen and orders a swing set. And he told the guy, go and install it in Mercedes at this guy's house. He said, and when you're there installing it, he's going to run you off. But you tell him that the swing set is not for him, it's for my grandkids. And exactly what happened. I said, he had told me, don't expect nothing from me, and I said, I won't. But he got around that by saying it was for grandkids, not for me. So I had to accept the swing set.
That's a good story.
A lot of stories.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Mr. Hinojosa, we're going to take a little break. Okay? And when we come back, I would like to welcome Gloria, because Gloria is already in the story here.
Yes.
And so we'll bring Gloria on, and she can tell us a little bit about her story. And then I got
Not about me, though.
Her story is very connected with your story here. But, I think that Gloria's got a good story to tell here about, she becomes a teacher.
Yes.
And the innovative nature of her work. But thank you for sharing your stories. We were not finished.
No.
Yes, okay. But
So when we come back, we'll continue the story, but we're gonna bring in the bride, Gloria, and we'll get some stories from her, and then at some point here get into their own professional lives and professional identities. So just stay with us for a bit, okay? We'll be back.
It's easy to find it when you know where to look. Some define it as a breath of fresh air. Others find it in the fast lane by being yourself. Some like to kick it, enjoy every minute, and get the adrenaline pumping, while others prefer the feeling of adventure, finding the unexpected, the undiscovered. But everyone can agree, coming together in Edinburgh guarantees you'll be making memories you'll treasure forever. Life is a series of experiences with your friends and family, your neighbors and community. Sometimes it's the simple things, like getting together for good times, pushing the limits, learning something new from the old, or just something new. This award-winning, All-America City is yours for the taking. It's in Edinburgh.
Welcome back to Museum Pláticas. Francisco Guajardo with you here. I'm a little flummoxed at the moment because Mr. Hinojosa was just telling this riveting story about a game against Westlaco High School and where he fumbled, and then one of his buddies, Domingo Sanchez, who was an extraordinary athlete, and I think he died young, right, in a car accident. He was a football player at Sam Houston State or somewhere.
Yes.
And so Mr. Hinojosa is telling the story of how, because they fumbled, the football coach gave each of them a football to not drop, and they would have to carry it the entire weekend and then bring it to school on Monday morning. And so
Carry it all week
and so then Monday morning
class.
to every class.
Yes, sir.
And so you were telling the story of how on Monday morning you thought, I'm not taking the ball, and you told Domingo, do not bring the ball.
That's right.
But Domingo brought the ball.
He brought the ball.
You took it away from him.
I took it away.
You put it in the closet.
Stuck it in my locker, yes.
And then the coach sees you.
Yeah, somebody squealed on us, and the coach asked us to go to his office. So we show up at his office, and he said, why aren't you carrying that football like I told you? And I said, you're not going to embarrass us. We did our best. We played our hearts out Friday night, and we were sick, and that's why we fumbled the damn ball. So you're not going to punish us for that. If you want to kick us off the team, it's your choice. But we're not quitting. He said, get out of my office right now. We were the two guys that were moving the ball, so he could not get rid of us because the season was just going to start on the district games. So, but those things happen at school, you know. It's he never liked me because of that, because I would stand up for my rights.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yes.
That's almost like the story of Salvador
Salvador
Hector
Hector, yes, sir.
years
Yes, sir.
before.
Yeah.
Defiance.
Defiance. Was he a defiant young man?
I wouldn't take it.
So there's he's a personality, he's a character, and he told me the story the other day that when he met you, that he immediately fell in love because you were such a beautiful girl, he said. And he showed me the picture, and he pulled out the picture and he said, Mira, how could I not say you're going to be my wife? Right? You told me that.
Right.
He was crazy.
How many years ago was that? That must have been, what,
65 at least.
65?
Because we've been married 63,
66.
and we
66.
we were going together for what, 3 years.
So, Mrs. Hinojosa, you're from Mercedes,
Right.
and you went to Mercedes High School.
Yes.
You graduated when?
In 1961.
In 61.
But I went 3 years and I had all my credits. And my parents needed a little help. So I said, I don't need to continue going my senior year. Why don't I just work? And I did. So I finished in 3 years.
Who were your parents?
My father was Lázaro Solis, basically from La Feria, from Solis Road. And my mother was Emilia Handy from Donna. The Handys from Donna. So they made quite a pair as well.
Yes, rivalry schools. No?
Well, Dad went to school, I think, in Brownsville and in San Antonio. Mother was at the time when they would bring in teachers from Mexico to teach them. Although their father was Anglo, they were taught in Spanish for a few years.
Your grandfather
My grandfather
was
my
an
mother's-
Anglo man.
Yes, Albert Handy.
Albert Handy. ¿De dónde venían ellos?
Well, they came. His father wasn't from here. I think the father was originally from Philadelphia. They made their way down, like many Anglos did, coming down and married rich Spanish women. That's what happened.
Was that a thing?
Wasn't he in the service though? That's why he was here.
His father was in the service though.
Mm.
He was from Philadelphia. Then they moved to Wisconsin. But anyway, from the area up
Mhm.
north. Yes.
Well, there was a well-known county commissioner, Sylvia Handy.
Yeah.
Familiar?
Yeah, she would be probably my second cousin.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you would go to Pan Am in 1961.
No, actually, when we were married, I had been working because I helped him. When his father decided that we should marry in a week, and I was shocked, and so we did. And so when I had been working, was raising money for ourselves. I had been working at a gin, and that's when the Berlin crisis occurred. I was working
At a cotton gin?
at the Cotton Gin in La Villa.
Yes, and so you did what at the cotton gin?
I was just like a receptionist and
Okay.
bookkeeper. I just kept their books.
Yes.
And but it was that year in 1961 that he decided he wanted to get married, and I was 18 or 19, and so I agreed. And we were supposed to get married at the end of October. And his father said, no, why don't you get married next week? I was very shocked. And so we proceeded, as he told you earlier. And then when he left, I stayed and I got another job close to Mercedes at the Enterprise. While he was gone, I kept on working.
At the newspaper?
At a newspaper. It was closer to my home. I had been working in La Villa, but they called me. So would you like to come work? I said, sure.
What did you do at the Mercedes Enterprise?
Basically the same thing. I was doing their book work
How long did you work there?
for as long as he was gone, for a year. And when he came back, that's when we decided to move to Edinburgh. And I got a job at the employment office. And the reason I got the job, 2 reasons. It was because I would go every day because I needed a job. And 2, because he told me, well, you look Anglo, I'm going to hire you because you look Anglo.
Who said that?
Mr. Hughes, he was the manager then. And so there was like there was 2 men there and myself that were Hispanics.
And so the Anglo look was preferred for
Evidently,
the front office people?
that's what he told me.
And so I want to know a little bit more about the Mercedes Enterprise. Do you remember the owner of the enterprise
At that time was Mr. Harvey. Yeah, he was an eccentric little man But he liked me. He liked me to work for him, and so again because I looked Anglo.
And when you say he was an eccentric little man, can you describe what that means?
He was very strange. He was very nice, but he had his ways, and it didn't bother me. I said whatever. He was the kind that would always say office gossip, all the little things like that. That made him to me. I said, oh, there he is again, and he didn't mind my way of saying back to him or ignoring some of his little innuendos or whatever, for whatever reason. Yeah, and I did my job.
When you were in high school, at Mercedes High School, were you a top student?
I wouldn't say I was. I would say I was average. I didn't have to study. I picked it up real fast. So I felt like that's what happened when I went to college. I had to study, and I had 3 babies. But I didn't have to study real hard. All I had to do was be in class. I picked it up just by being there. So my mind was good. I didn't perform as well as I should have, but I would say I was an average student. I liked history.
But you have a facility with words.
I wouldn't know that, but I suppose I did. I had good teachers, I have to say.
You look at how you describe things. He was an eccentric little man. The words you choose are very descriptive. Because in eccentric little man, in 3 words, you said what it takes most people 20 words to say. Think about it.
Things quick.
Yeah.
Don't ask her what she thinks of me.
I think we might have a clue already.
She'll use more words than that.
When did you go to Pan Am?
I went to college. I started when we got married. I took 2 classes. I took typing. I decided I needed to go back and take a breather in typing and shorthand because I didn't know shorthand. And that's why I got hired as well at the employment office, because I could do that. He said, can you type? I said, yes. Can you take shorthand? I said, a little, but I can take a letter and I can, and so I did. He said, okay, you're hired. And there was no big thing like nowadays. It was just, you're hired. You can start right now. So I did.
But when did you start Mija College? In 1960?
In 1961.
63?
No, it was in 1960. We got married in 1961. 62.
Yeah.
I started college in 62 because our baby came the following year, 63.
How many years did you go to college?
Well, I started then, and then we moved back to Mercedes, and by then I had our first baby, and after she must have been about 5 or 6 months, I got a job at the school as a secretary. So when I was working as a secretary, I would come at night with friends, just like 1 or 2 courses. So I kept on I ended up with about 17 hours. And then when my last baby was born, that was my 3rd one, I said, I think it's time for me to go back because if I don't do it while they're little, it's going to get harder when they get older. And so I went back to school in 1967. My youngest daughter was when Beulah came. My youngest daughter was like 7 months. And I said, I can do it. I can do it. And so I would take like 19 hours. I would take lots of hours.
Wow.
Just to get out.
So you would go to the school, you would stay there the entire day?
Actually, I figured it out. At first, I was taking like 15, but I figured it out that if I would go certain days, I would, and then be home by 11 or 12 to check on my kids because I had either a maid or my mother. So I couldn't be there all day. But as I proceeded, I always worked out my schedule to where I would be with my children as well.
And you would begin to teach?
Oh, I didn't begin to teach till when I graduated. Mr. Fitzgerald was the principal in Mercedes, and I had always been his pet. So he wanted me to finish. He said, Gloria, I really want you here, but I think you should finish it for your best interest to finish your college. And as a matter of fact, I went to 2 colleges my senior year. I went to A&I to take a course because they wouldn't let me take more hours at Pan Am because I was doing my student teaching. So I said, well, you don't take me, I'll go to the other one. I would always find a way to do what I needed to do. So I ended up with 20-something hours, something like that, because I needed to get out of there and get to work. It's hard.
And Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald then hired you as a teacher?
When I graduated, I was hired in 1969, because it was 6970.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What did you teach?
You know what they usually give the first time teacher?
Mm-hmm.
All the kids that are left over in the first grade. And I had a lot of kids from Mexico, from Guadalajara, from Guatemala, from wherever. And they were like 12 and 14 years old, and I had little ones. And we worked it out. And I would teach them because they didn't know the English. I would work with them. I would get the material, and I would say, okay, whatever you read in English, you got to give it to me in Spanish. That was our ESL. And that's what we did. And they learned.
And was there bilingual education laws already?
No, I don't think, they may have been, but I wasn't involved in it at the time. I did what I thought was best for my kids, and they learned very fast. But I worked hard.
Sure. What was the name of your school where you taught?
Travis Elementary in Mercedes.
And you were there for how long?
It was then, I was there like three or 4 years, that busing came into effect, when the children were beginning to be bused. So that meant that you had to move to another school, because now first graders, perhaps and second graders, were going to be in one school, then third and fourth in another school, and we were actually busing the kids. We probably were involved in that as you were young, because the whole United States was doing it, busing students back and forth.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because I started school in 70.
It was a few years
And
later.
I think in the Ed Calchosa experience is that there were so few schools. There was one elementary school for all the kids from Ed Calchosa, and so there wasn't really anywhere else to go but that one elementary school. Mercedes must have had at least two
We
elementary
had
schools.
Kennedy, which was on the north side, Travis, and La Escuela de los Gringos, that they used to say, was South School. So we had like three.
You see, then,
Oh, and Taylor.
okay,
four,
so then there would have been reason then
to bus.
to bus, or at least a rationale. And at Calchosa, where I grew up, we didn't have that kind of, that kind of structure where they would have bused because of race or because of class or because of neighborhoods, like in Mercedes they may have.
Yeah.
How many years did you teach?
Well, after teaching in Mercedes for about 14 years, something like that, I think my father had passed away, and I stayed one of my daughters was not well. So I said, I'll stay for a semester. And then one of my friends at the end of the semester said, we need an extra teacher in La Feria. But I had been teaching ESL in Mercedes by then. I had been teaching first grade, and then you're a speech major, you're going to be good in ESL. So that's what they put me. You know how it was. Wherever they wanted to put you, you would go. So I did. And then I went to La Feria for the next 14 or 15 years, taught ESL again. But then after that, I just taught the regular elementary, and then I went to junior high.
In La Feria?
Yeah.
How many years were you in La Feria?
About 14 or 15.
Okay.
Bastante.
So then you put in a good 30 plus years as a secretary and then as a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were retirement eligible, probably young.
In my 50s, but then after I retired, I tutored. That's when I wrote the books.
So about the books, what is the story here? And I'm going to pull out some books. And by the way, I'm trying to monitor also, because you guys are on Facebook Live. And Pam, I don't know if you want to chime in here or say, if I need to respond to anything. So you can just tell me, Pam. But okay, I'm going to pull out these books. I think I have 3. So you decided, now this is later, because I think you
when I was
published
tutoring.
these in 2001.
Yeah.
You developed your own book that is called The Reading Tutor. So Reading Tutor, this I guess was number 1, and then The Reading Tutor 2. And as a subtitle, you wrote Reading That Makes Sense. Developed for and used in the classroom. And then there's an additional one. This one is Beginning Spanish.
Absolutely.
This is is that pre-K?
Yeah.
Maybe? So this is very young, and this is all the way to the 2nd to the 4th level, and this is beginning. So
So I'm just going to show these here. Marcela, if you can maybe zoom in on these para que vea la gente. So I think that there's so many stories to be told here, Mrs. Hinojosa, about how you represent, I think, the entrepreneurial teacher. Now, you already had some experience in the classroom.
Oh, yes.
But then you must have had some kind of gumption to go como, como atrevida, to go and write a book. And you write here in your introduction that you wrote this because you felt that your students were not getting everything they needed.
No, and then if you'll notice, it doesn't say grades here, it says levels. Because then I had students from different age levels, and I didn't want to, I wanted to specify that it was not for a particular grade.
Mm-hmm.
It was a level, because you can have students at any level in any grade, as you know. And so I specifically put that, and that as well, and all the same thing with my Spanish. You can be learning Spanish in levels as well.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the reason being that, in the first place, I majored in speech and elementary education in college because I had children that I wanted to go into therapy at the time. We didn't have it, but my children had speech problems. My two older children. So therefore, I tried to become as proficient in speech and linguistics. I liked it, and since I was using it with my children. And then I was using it as well with my students. And at the time when, about the second year, third year I was teaching, entered in economy, the company economy with the phonics. And it was perfect phonics. I say perfect phonics because I have learned from many years of teaching that you can have phonics, but it's not orderly. To me, linguistics is orderly. You have to start from the bottom and then grow. Phonics, you can just throw it in any time. And it doesn't work well with students, I have learned from experience. And so therefore, noticing, and I also taught sight reading, and I didn't see the results like I had seen them with economy. Economy was perfect, I thought, because it went from step one all the way, and it just kept growing, and they kept adding material, the books. So did the vocabulary, and I saw the children bloom, and I saw any child bloom, even Down syndrome,
Really?
because they were taught they could learn. There was reasoning to it.
You make reference to how the school expected you, even as a tutor, to train students for the TAS, you said.
At the time.
At the time, in I think 2000, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
But that you said, you know what, no. I might use some of that, but I'm using this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make reference there to how your students actually perform very well
Oh yeah. Exactly.
with this method.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, they had, and if you visit any school right now, you'll have students falling behind. They're just left behind. It's not that they can't do it, it's that they haven't been given the proper skills.
And for you, the proper skills would have been very basic language skills, learning sounds, learning how to put words together, learning how to
Connect the words. Yeah.
And a lot of this is really about teaching children how to understand Spanish.
Well, Spanish has the phonics. They never got rid of them.
Right.
And you'll never see a child from Mexico or even Spain. They have different accents,
Mhm.
but you'll never see them having problems. But here we do, because we keep throwing new material and without reasoning. They just keep throwing it at them, and children have to have a reason. It's very scientific.
As I reviewed your materials here, I thought, this may be actually very useful for anybody who wants to learn Spanish.
Anybody, yeah. That's why I didn't put grades. I put
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, this is interesting, but I think that you, as I suggested a while ago, you represent, some teachers, not all the teachers, but some
No,
teachers
absolutely not all.
who think, there are teachers who think, no, I need to have a different way. I'm a committed teacher, and what the school is giving me or what the state is asking us to do
is not good enough. You went and you developed your own materials.
And as I was teaching the children, I mean, I noticed at the very back, I came up with little games because you have to give them other. And I
Yeah.
only had them for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But the good thing was that they showed so much progress, and the teachers loved me for that reason because, hey, she's teaching, that she's doing things we can't do because they don't have the time. It's not that they don't want to. Many times they just don't have the time.
Right.
And I had the time because that's all I was doing at that time.
How did you fund this? Was this out of pocket or did the school pay for this?
Out of pocket.
Out of pocket.
Yeah, what I did do is afterwards, because the teachers wanted the books. They said, we like them, can we have some? I said, I have to, and they said, well, why don't you publish them? So I had to look around for a publisher. Copy Zone was my publisher. And I spent money on them, and then they would ask me to give in services. So I did that to a couple of schools in Mercedes and in Wesco, and they bought them. And
Well-
but I'm not a salesperson.
No, and you probably, I mean, you really can't make a lot of money off of this. You're gonna maybe make enough money to pay for your costs, if that.
Yeah. But it was a lot of work, but I was doing it while I was teaching, and I liked doing it. I mean, I'm interested. I wanted the students to learn, and so while I was doing it, they were working on it. It was not hard for me at all.
Well,
I enjoyed it. Really, I did.
I'll just say this: good work.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed
Yes.
it. I could have kept on going. It's just that I think the program stopped or something. I said, well, and I was doing it while I was teaching. I was writing for them because I needed the material.
Right.
So that's how come it became.
Did you must have spent a lot of hours at home developing these materials. Was the family supportive of this?
Oh yeah, by that time my girls were married, and so I had not a lot of time, but you have to make time. I did.
When was your first child born?
My daughter was born in 1963.
And her name?
Was Veronica
And your second child?
Gloria, like me, because I was hoping for a boy. Like
Like, como don Atanacio was hoping for a girl.
girl.
Yes. And so Gloria is the second one.
and then my last one, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, two of your girls are still with us, right?
Yes.
Yes. And so, and those are
Gloria and Elizabeth.
Gloria and Elizabeth. Yes.
Yes.
She went through a really bad experience. We lost a child, a boy child.
That was the fourth one.
And that was a horrible experience, but she survived.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you told me the story
Yeah.
when we had lunch together that you went and you said to the physician, "You saved my wife."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know how they're fussing about it right now, about those things. If it had been to leave me alone, I would have died. And the baby. And the baby
Right.
died anyway. But the point is that in some cases of abortion, mine wasn't because the baby was coming and out. But if I hadn't been saved, if they had gone by that rule, I would not have made it.
Wow. That's a very personal testimony.
Yes, it is.
So, Mr. Hinojosa, how did you feel about her creative venture?
No, I always helped her. I did as much as I could. I would type sometimes
Oh,
for
yeah,
her.
he did that.
Because I'm a good typist. And I learned typing in high school. I don't know how or why, but I learned to type, and I could type as good as the girls. So when she asked me to type some stuff, I would type it for her, and I would go with her to the publishers. And
Yeah, we
she
worked
came
together.
to me. She came to me at the bank for a loan, and
Really?
I turned
No.
They would have
I turned her down.
No.
That would have been a
Good-
little complicated.
good-
But
graciously we had it wasn't that expensive, you know.
Okay.
I don't know, but we had the money to pay for this, so.
Yeah.
you must have learned how to type in the manual on the manual
Oh, of course,
typewriter,
yes,
not
yes.
electric,
No.
because electric didn't come
I-
in until.
I typed his research paper on the manuals because I helped him I was working, but I also helped him. I did some of the work for him while he was in college.
Can you explain to the public what typing on a manual typewriter was like? I mean, it was a lot of like golpes, ¿verdad?
No.
But it's an exercise. I know my father loved to type, and he was good at it. And he would really go, if you have a little bit of arthritis, which I did, and I think I do still, it's a little harder. But when you practice and practice and practice, pues,
Yeah,
you get good at it.
yeah. You probably
He's-
developed strength.
He's good. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He's good.
Wow.
Well, so those stories I typed them myself.
You did, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a good process actually, because if you write them out by hand and then you type what you've written, it becomes another draft as you're typing it in, because you catch
Totally.
yourself
Yeah.
with this phrase that you want to rewrite. And so it's really doing a second draft. Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story about how the typing helped me when I became an insurance adjuster. And if he's going to discuss the later on my story. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how about we do that? We're gonna go on break for a second, and then I want to get into this whole realm of banking, because you probably would have come up as a banker during a time that banking looked very different in terms of who got loans, who's giving loans, who has access. So we'll get into those stories in a second. Okay. Thank you for your stories, Mrs. Hinojosa. I really appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
So when we come back, we'll continue with our third and final segment, where we will get into the history of banking in South Texas, especially in the mid to late 20th century. So stay with us.
Welcome back to Museum Pláticas. Francisco Guajardo with you once again. I was delighted and charmed by Mrs. Hinojosa, who was here, joined us for the last segment, and very impressive educator, impressive person. And so I just want to thank her for being on camera with us for the segment that she was on. Y el jovenazo acá. El señor Atanacio Hinojosa, he's got like a whole story here of working in the banking industry. And so he tells a story, and he might get into this, maybe not, but of how I think one of his first employments was as a teacher, but teaching just wasn't paying enough for him. So he found an opportunity to move into another industry.
Yes.
And so, Mr. Hinojosa, tell us the story of your entry into insurance and then banking, I think is the way it went.
Yes.
So tell that story.
Well, like I told you earlier, teaching wasn't paying anything. I signed a contract to teach for $2,300 a year. I was married, had a home expenses, had children to feed. So during the summer, I would go to work at the local gym. And I was working as a common laborer, but I was making more money working at the gym than as a teacher. So I came home one day and I told my wife, I said, there's something wrong with this picture. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I have a college degree, I'm a teacher, but I make more money as a laborer. I said, so what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to look for another job. So I went to a local employment agency, and they found me a job as an insurance adjuster. Immediately as an insurance adjuster, I doubled my salary, and they gave me a car at their own expense. So I started adjusting claims, all kinds of insurance claims, all the way from Brownsville to Rio Grande City. And I had a real successful career with the insurance people. The name of the people that hired me was Fanning, Brebner, and Inman. And one day I called, I got a call on the phone and I said FBI agency because it's Fanning, Bremner, and Inman. It wasn't too long before an FBI agent showed up and scolded us for using that. He said, "You're not the FBI, so from now on you have to say the full name." So we did. So I enjoyed my job as an insurance adjuster. I helped a lot of people fix their cars and pay for their bills and stuff like that. And one of the customers that I adjusted a claim for happened to be the secretary of the owner of the Mercedes First National Bank. So I adjusted her claim and I told her, I said, Mrs. Wilson was her name, Berna Wilson, still remember her name. "This is my card. Whatever you need, you call me. Day or night, I'm here to help you." So at the time, at the bank had a loan officer that got into a problem at the stock show grounds in Mercedes. The owner of the bank was a director of the stock show grounds, so he could not allow one of his employees to make trouble at the stock show. So they let him go. So they started looking for somebody to replace him as a loan officer. I did not know about the job. I wasn't interested in the job. But they started interviewing local people from Mercedes. And then Mrs. Wilson went to one of the board meetings and told him, gave him my card and said, "This is the guy you want for the job." So the bank president, I didn't know about it, but he hired the local police chief to check me out. So the local police chief went around investigating my background, where I was from, where I went to school. I had never been in trouble with the law. I had married Gloria Solis, a reputable family from Mercedes. So they had me investigated without me even knowing about it. So we used to have a group of guys from Mercedes that we call them the HPC Club, jodidos pero contentos, poor but happy. So we would meet at a local little restaurant that the guy would cater to us. He would barbecue little tidbits and sell us beer.
But Mr. Hinojosa, if it was jodidos pero contentos, wouldn't it be J?
Well, whatever. It's still jodido. I thought it was an H anyway.
Whatever it is, but I get it. It would be the Tex-Mex,
Tex-Mex.
in the name. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So now, at this time, when the police figures out if you're good to hire and all this, you are about 27 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
26 por ahí. Anyway, so every Friday, me and my 3 or 4 friends, we would all get together at this little place, and the guy would cook for us, and we would drink a few beers, nothing to get drunk or fight, nada, and then we would go home. And everybody knew us in town that we did that every Friday. So the bank president calls my home at maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. My wife tells him I'm not home. And he said, "You tell him to call me whenever he gets home." Well, I get home maybe around 9 o'clock or so. So she tells me the bank president called you, wants you to call him. I said, "At this hour? No." He said, "What did he want?" "I don't know." He didn't say. So the next morning, I get up and I called the bank president, and he said, "What can I do for you?" He said, "Can you meet me at the bank?" And I said, "What for?" And I said, "Whenever you come, I'll let you know." "Okay, what time?" 10 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock, I show up, and there's the bank president and about 5 elderly men there with him. They were the board of directors. So I show up.
Names. Do you remember names? The president, you certainly remember his name, no?
Well, it was Shelley Collier Jr., his father, Shelley Collier Sr., and Johnny Jones, and and Garner George. Those are 4 names that I can remember. So anyway, I show up and I said, what are we here for? And he said, we are going to offer you a job. And I said, I'm not looking for a job. I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. And he said, yes, but we want you to come to work for us. And so I said, I have never asked about money. I said, but I need to know because I have a family to support. What does the job pay? And he said, what are you making now? And I told him, I said, I'm making $400 a month in a car with all expenses paid. Then he tells me, I'll match the salary, but no car. So I said, well, let me think about it, and I'll let you know by Monday, whatever. So then I go home and I tell my wife, and then I call my advisor, which is my dad. He was around at the time. And I said, this is what's going on. What do I do? He said, take the job. And I said, why? And he tells me, you are on the road constantly from Brownsville to Rio Grande City. On the highway, there's danger. You have a family, so you need to stay closer to home. At the bank, you will be sitting in an office. People come to you. You don't go looking for them. And he said, how far is your home from the bank? I said, about 5 blocks. It's a good walk. He said, so you don't need a car. So he said, take the job. So I called them the next Monday, and I told them about that I would take the job. And so that's how I got into banking. Not even realizing that I was ever going to be into banking, but that's the story.
So this is 1966 or 68, 1968.
Yeah.
You take a job at the name of the bank is
First National Bank of Mercedes.
And your job at that time was as what?
Loan officer.
Officer.
That's what they needed, a loan officer. I had never made a loan in my life, but the guy said, we will teach you. And they did. They gave me some instructions and stuff like that. And I was a born salesman anyway, so I could figure things out.
And so in 1968, you began your banking career that would last until when?
I don't remember when I retired, but I was there for 35 years. If you can add that up together, that's when I retired. That's 20 years ago.
Yeah, sometime around maybe 2002 or 3
Something
or 4,
like that,
you
yeah.
retired.
Yeah.
When you retired, what was your position?
Senior Vice President of Lending,
Where?
Alamo Bank of Texas.
Senior Vice President of Lending.
Yes, sir.
When you look, Mr. Hinojosa, at the 35 years in the banking industry, if you could pull maybe 2 or 3 of the highlights for you in terms of, personal gratification, maybe impact, maybe changes that you would have initiated or whatever, what would those highlights be?
Well, I was very, very lucky. When I first started my banking career, people just followed me to the bank. They just came in droves.
What people and why?
Everybody, the business people, the common people, the teachers, the janitors, whoever. Because back in those days, we could make loans for $300-400. Nowadays, they won't even talk to you. But I could make $300-400 loan to the little lady, the little housewife. I took care of everybody. I took care of farmers. I took care of business people. And I took care of the common, ordinary person. I treated everybody with respect, and that's why they came to me. I was the most successful loan officer at the bank at the time. And I even wound up in not the hospital, but I had to go see a doctor once because people would not leave me alone. I wouldn't go to lunch because people were lined up waiting to see me. And then people would call me on the phone and I would answer the phone. I would go home and they would call me at the house. And they would go visit me and knock on my door. So one day, this is maybe 4 or 5 years into my job, and one day I undid my shirt, my tie, because I just had like chest pains. And the bank president tried to scold me for that, and I said, don't mess with me. I don't feel good right now. So he asked me what happened, and I told him, so he sent me to his personal doctor in San Antonio. And I went to the doctor in San Antonio. I took my wife with me, and he checked me out, and I was strong as an ox. He said, there's nothing wrong with you except tell me about your day. So I told him all this stuff. I don't go to eat, and people bother me at home, and I answer the phone and stuff. He said, this is your problem. He said, you need to slow down. Let the secretary answer the phone. At noon, tell the secretary, tell the people to go, because you gotta go to eat from 12 to 1 or 1 to 2, but you need to get out of there. At home, your wife is gonna answer the phone. You're not there for anybody. You're there from 9 to 12, and from 2 to 5 or 6, and that's it. So I came back, and we did all those changes, and I'm still around because of that. I had to modify the way I was doing things. And I helped a lot of people buy their homes, buy lots, buy automobiles, go to college. I made college loans, SBA loans. So we had a really good business in Mercedes. The bank president gave me a lot of leeway, that I was the one in charge of hiring and firing and everything. He did, and they paid me good money, and I was surprised at the end of the year, the first year that I worked there. After 2 months, the president said, go across the street to the dealership there. It was a Chevrolet, and get whatever kind of car you want. And we're going to provide you with a car now. And then at the end of the year in December, I get a $12,000 bonus. I had made so many good loans that the bank was just growing. So they gave me that. So that started my savings account a little better.
Wow.
So I had a good experience. And even to this day, I have people that stop me and thank me for helping them buy their home and help them with their business. So that's it's been a good situation.
Some of the people you worked with through the years that you would say, mira, ese le di la mano, you know, some employees, bankers perhaps, maybe people who are bank executives today. Anybody come to mind?
Well, Cesar Salinas, I helped him get his job at a bank with the same Shelley Collier. Shelley Collier left Mercedes and came to McAllen. And he needed an officer in McAllen, so I recommended Cesar, and he hired Cesar. And then there's other bankers that, there was a banker in Rio Grande City, Cesar Gonzalez, that I also trained, and he moved over. And so there was I hired a bunch of girls from other banks to come work with me, and they became very successful bankers also. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's been they all have a lot of respect for me in that way.
How about, well, there's Cesar, other people from the Delta area, La Villa, Ed Couch?
No, they're mainly all from Mercedes and West Laco. Mm-hmm. I left Mercedes and came to West Laco. And I spent the last few years in the West Laco banks. One of the things that back in those days, I had control of my office. I told the guy, give me a limit of lending. I don't want to have to be asking you, can I make this loan or not? So they gave me a $100,000 limit. Back in the early days, you were too young maybe, but you could buy a brand new car for $3,000-4,000. Nowadays, they're $40,000-50,000. So if you have a limited deal that you have to go talk to the president and to the board for every loan, then I told them, you don't need me. So they gave me a pretty nice lending limit so I wouldn't have to bother anybody. I was very, very fortunate that I never had any problems with my customers because I talked to them in rancho way. Don't mess with me. I'm going to help you. I'm not lending you my money. I'm lending you my customers' money, and that's sacred. So you pay me, and if you have a problem, you come see me, and we'll work it out. The bank examiners would come and they say, "You're making a lot of loans and you don't have any charge-offs?" "No, sir." "No delinquency?" "No, sir." "Why?" I said, "Because I treat my customers right." So
What is the story of banking in South Texas in the last, say, 50 years, maybe 60 years? Because you've been very privy to see the development of the banking industry here. What's the role of banking around here?
well, the way I see it, and one of the reasons that I wanted to retire was because the first 3 banks that I worked with, I had to say so into what I did. When Alamo Bank, which is the last bank that I worked for, I was the branch manager and I was in charge of the whole branch, and nobody came to bother me. We took care of everything. And then Alamo Bank sold to Frost. And when Frost took over, any loan that you had to make, you had to get the application and ship it to San Antonio or Dallas or somewhere to get it approved. And I said, this is not me. I don't go for that. So, and then started changes. Nowadays, it's all computerized and it's all by phone, and it's stuff that I was not used to. I was used to seeing the customer in my office, taking care of him, shaking his hand, and everybody's happy. Nowadays, it's all computerized. It's all phone by bank. By phone and computers and applications online, and I wasn't used to none of that, and I wasn't going to put up with it.
I would think, Mr. Hinojosa, that the magic in banking today must still be around relationships. Don't you think? I mean, human beings haven't changed that much.
No, you still have relationships, but they're different.
They're different.
Yeah. Nowadays, they apply. It even happened to me. When I retired, I had a CD at one of the banks, and I went to what I supposed to be a loan officer, and I said, "I have a CD. I'd like to borrow $10,000 on my CD." And they said, "I cannot do that loan. You have to go talk to the new accounts girl." I said, "You're a loan officer. I gave you the damn job that you have now. And now you're telling me you cannot make me a loan?"
This is a person that you were in relationship with.
I hired that girl.
You hired the person.
Yes.
Okay.
And now she's a loan officer.
Yeah.
And I go because I know her. And she said, "I'm sorry, but they just won't let me do it. This is Frost Bank." And I said, "I don't have any business here." So I went to a small bank where they still did banking my way, and they made the loan in 5 minutes. So this is where things change. I cannot talk to you because I'm a commercial loan officer and you want a personal loan, that kind of stuff. I used to make personal loans, commercial loans, real estate loans, anything. People come to me for whatever they want. Now it's departmentalized. You want a commercial loan, you go here. You want a personal loan, you go here. And don't come to us unless it's 10,000 or more. So they're not talking to the small people anymore. And there have been some drastic changes that I think.
Let's say that you were to have 100 kids in front of you, and they invited you to give a talk to all these kids who are, I don't know, some between the ages of 16 and 20. And somebody invited you to come in to talk to them because you have a rich life of lessons learned in education, in insurance, in banking, other work that you've done. What would you tell those kids?
The first thing I would tell anybody is dress for success. I cannot understand why people wear trousers that are all torn, shirts that are all torn, and this is the, ¿cómo se llama? The style. Where in the hell do people get those ideas that torn blue jeans look good? You know, it's bad. Tattoos, I don't have any tattoos in my body. I cut my hair, I shave my face, I try to dress neatly. So that's the first thing I would tell anybody. If you're gonna go look for a job, dress for success. Always be polite, always say thank you, always, may I help you? That's what I told my people at the bank. We never had a problem. I told the girls, as soon as somebody walks in, you greet them. What can I do for you? And if you're not gonna do that, I don't want you in my bank. So, you know, I think politeness, the way you dress, very, very important. Don't mess around with drugs. Don't mess around. It's okay to have a few beers or whatever, but limit it. Don't overdo it. I've never been in jail. I've never been arrested. So it's things that you need to just follow, and I think that's learned at home. The parents need to do that. My kids never drank. They never smoked. They never had to go get them out of jail. So I think that they followed my wife's and my way of living.
You've had a good life, Mr. Hinojosa?
Yes, sir. No regrets.
No regrets. Wow. Thank you for being who you are, for being such a good citizen, and for being productive and a man of integrity and honor.
My father always told us también, if you serve your community, but don't stay there forever. So I served my Mercedes as a city commissioner for 2 terms, and we did good improvements in Mercedes. We built a new city hall. We did those kind of things. And then I served in the school board for South Texas for about 4 terms, and then I decided it was enough, so I got out. I didn't want to stay there forever. So I helped my community. I was a volunteer fireman, and I was a JC, and I helped in the stock show. I was on the board for 25 years.
Wow.
So I like to get involved in my community, and I've been lucky. I have the respect of the community, and I think that's important.
Well, on behalf of the Museum of South Texas History, Mr. Hinojosa, I want to say thank you for coming out to the museum and for, putting up with me and putting up with the camera and the lights. But here's what we get. What we get is, let me see, it's 2 hours and 13 minutes of a recording that will be there forever. So if you want to say to a friend, un familiar que esté en California o que esté in Mercedes,
Wherever.
you say, go to the museum's Facebook page and see the interview where Gloria and I were, talking stories about our lives. And so this is going to be on Facebook Live and also on YouTube. On Facebook, the museum's Facebook page, and also on YouTube, the museum's YouTube channel. So this is being recorded, and so as soon as we finish here, Pam, who does the back end here on the tech, and Marcela, who's doing the work on camera, as soon as we finish, they're gonna press a button. I don't know what that button is, but it will immediately have you on the internet with this interview, and that's why we ask you to sign that, so that the community can learn from you. Disagree or agree. When you say these are my words of wisdom, I think they have weight because they are the lived experience of an 85-year-old man.
Pues sí.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
coming, and thank you also to your wife, Gloria, for also telling her stories.
I'll wait for my check in the mail.
Is that spoken like a good banker or what? Okay, so that is the October
2024 edition of Museum Pláticas. We look forward to the next one. The next one, I believe, will be with Joe Vera for the city of McAllen, where we will talk about the big Christmas festival that the city of McAllen, organizes, and that is like one of the leading festivals anywhere. But for now, I think we have to say thank you to Mrs. Hinojosa, Gloria Solis Hinojosa. So thank you, Mrs. Hinojosa, who's back there and who authored books to be a better teacher. What a gift! And to me, Mr. Hinojosa as well, for his life of work and good deeds. So thank you to friends of the Museum of South Texas History for staying with us and for listening to stories that are important about the history and heritage of South Texas and northeastern Mexico. So until next time, we bid adieu here. So Francisco Guajardo from the museum, Ms. Hinojosa as well. Okay, we'll see you next time.